You've spent $14 million on busing migrants out of the state of Texas to cities like DC, Chicago, New York. Some people are calling this a political stunt. What's your reaction to that, and what is the ultimate goal in busing these migrants out of the state?
So there was a primary goal that began the whole process to begin with, and that is I was on the border meeting with mayors and county judges, police chiefs, and sheriffs. And in small little towns like Eagle Pass and Del Rio, they were having dumped into their communities either hundreds or thousands of migrants by the Border Patrol, by the Biden administration. They don't have the ability to deal with that. And in meeting with these local officials, they said they needed help. They needed to have these migrants removed from their community because they could not deal with it. I said, I'll take charge of it. And I would begin then busing the migrants to Washington, D.C. Why D.C.? Easy. And that is, the border problem was caused by one person, and that's Joe Biden. 2.5 years ago, we had the lowest border crossings in decades. Under Joe Biden, we have an all-time record of more than 2 million people in just 1 year coming across the border. So if Biden would never come down to the border to see the chaos that he caused, we were going to take the border to Joe Biden and let them see exactly what they caused. As it concerns the cost of it, listen, as you can see by how much the New York mayor is trying to put into dealing with the small amount of number of migrants they have, they're trying to come up with $1 billion for it. What we're spending by busing the migrants to New York or Washington, D.C. is just a tiny fraction of what it cost to deal with the problem caused by Joe Biden.
Could $14 million, though, be better spent if it stayed within the state of Texas?
If we were having to deal with the number of migrants that we've just bussed off to Washington, D.C. and New York, they are spending far more than that $14 million. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. And that would be hundreds of millions of dollars the state of Texas would be having to spend. And so this is helping out the local communities, but also saving a tremendous amount of money for our state that now other states are having to bear. And understand this very important concept. The border problem is not a Texas problem. It's not a red state problem. The border problem is a problem for the United States of America, and it must be solved by the United States of America. Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution makes it the federal government's responsibility, and they are failing at their job to do what they must do to secure our border.
Switching gears now to a different topic, Texas now has some of the strictest abortion bans in the entire country. It would seem like the only real option for an unwanted pregnancy for women within state lines would be the Plan B pill. In terms of your administration's plan moving forward, could Texans see the Plan B pill coming off of store shelves?
No. Listen, what's going to happen going forward will be an expansion of the Plan B pill. Let me explain this in greater detail, and that is, first of all, it's the state of Texas's obligation to provide the Plan B pill at no cost to a victim of rape. And so that will be readily available, especially at clinics or hospitals or other places where a woman may go, but also by way of prescription. And the state of Texas will pick up that cost.
I want to turn now to Uvalde. I know you were in Uvalde in those sad days following the tragedy at Robb Elementary School. Since then, you've implemented a lot of changes. There are families in Uvalde that say it's just not enough. I know just last week you named a new chief of security and safety within the TEA, John Scott. How soon can families see tangible changes, and what might those look like?
So actually, they've already seen the tangible changes, some of them, because for 6 consecutive days, I issued 6 executive orders to ensure that when schools opened in August, they would be in a safer condition. I worked with the Texas Education Agency to conduct school safety audits to make sure that the schools are complying with the laws already established by the state of Texas. And then this new chief of school safety will be working with all the schools throughout the state to make sure that they are following the best practices. On top of that, for example, the Texas Department of Public Safety has deployed at least 30 officers to patrol and to operate within the schools of Uvalde alone to make sure that those schools will be safer. That said, in addition to that, based upon other laws and programs that we initiated, we try to have a law enforcement officer in every school all the time doing their paperwork in the school in case any incident ever arises. Just know this, the bottom line is we understand the importance of school safety. I have a daughter that I was heavily involved with during her education years. I would want to make sure all schools are safe for all kids like I would want for her. And we are achieving that for parents, teachers, and students across the state.
Yeah, I was going to say, Governor, what's your message to families where we're living at a time where school threats are being called in that, you know, turn out to be false, families are on edge, mass hysteria breaks out, kids are scared. What should those perpetrators, what kind of punishment should they receive at a time like this?
It's a crime for these hoax calls to be made to schools about potential shootings. That's a crime. And the Texas Department of Public Safety is working with the FBI as well as local law enforcement to track down a lot of these calls and to arrest the people. I will tell you this, there were some calls made to schools in Houston, Texas that came from New York where people are playing hoaxes. And wherever they may be coming from, we will do what it takes to track them down, identify them, and arrest them and prosecute them for committing a crime.
There have been several media outlets, including ours, KPRC, that have filed lawsuits seeking documents and information related to the investigation. Governor, why has it been so difficult to achieve transparency in terms of the investigation in Uvalde?
Sure. So there's different levels to that. I'll give you one from me personally, and that is on the day I went down to Uvalde the first time. I had a meeting with all law enforcement as well as local leaders before I went out and briefed the public. And I wrote down handwritten notes during that meeting, and then I used those notes to explain exactly what happened. Requests were made for the information that I provided immediately so the public would know. Other forms of information, such as the video of what happened in that school where police were shown standing around and not doing the job as required by the protocols of the state of Texas. That's been provided, as well as I asked the legislature to get involved in this process, and in the aftermath of that, the Texas House of Representatives came up with the most comprehensive briefing and analysis of what happened over the course of the more than an hour-long process that the tragedy took place. However, we know that there is more information that's not been provided, and there's one explanation I've heard for that information not being provided, and that was the district attorney in Uvalde does not want that information released, and even testified from a witness stand where a lawsuit had been brought to disclose the information, and based upon her testimony, the judge ruled the information did not have to be given up at this time. Bottom line is this, the people of Uvalde, they deserve to know exactly what happened. The people of Texas deserve to know exactly what happened. And I want to see that information to be released as quickly as possible so everyone can know exactly what happened.
Is there a timeline as to when the people of Texas and the people of Uvalde that so badly want to know what that timeline looks like?
Candidly, I think we're far past the timeline. In my office this week and last week has had conversations with the district attorney to try to accelerate the timetable for the release of that information.
In terms of the state of Texas, I mean, the last time that my colleague saw you, Chris, it was during the pandemic. How is the state of Texas doing?
Literally, we've never been better. Some examples. Since I was last reelected, Texas has added far more jobs than any other state in the United States. During the time of the pandemic and after the pandemic, business after business after business chose to come to the state of Texas. This past May, for the first time ever, Texas became home to more Fortune 500 company headquarters than any other state. Just as important, because we remained open, it allows small businesses to be able to survive. And small businesses create most of the jobs in the state of Texas, and Texas ranks #1 as the best state to start a small business. But also, we're doing well in education. We've continued to have one of the highest rankings for high school graduation, but this year, Texas was recognized for having more blue ribbon schools than any other state in the United States. But importantly also, we were able to see our students be able to make gains from the COVID year, where they, in math, for example, are doing far better than they did in the COVID year in reading. Not only are they doing better than in the COVID year, they're doing better like in the past decade. And so our students are making progress, our businesses are making progress. We're getting back to normal faster than most every other state in the United States.
I think we're all happy to be out of the pandemic and moving forward. Governor, thank you so much for your time.
Sure, thank you.